Appearance. You were not born to be average. You were not born to shrink into corners and watch life pass you by. There is something deep inside you, something powerful, something incredible, something that has been waiting for you to wake up, waiting for you to stop doubting, stop hesitating, stop apologizing. Appearance, and finally believe in yourself. Because the moment you do, everything changes. You see, life will always test you. It will whisper in your ear, "You're not enough." It will throw failure in your face. It will take your heart, break it into pieces, and ask you to keep moving. Appearance. And if you don't believe in yourself, you'll fold, you'll settle, you'll stay stuck. Not because you didn't have the potential, but because you didn't have the belief. Appearance. There was a time in my life where I let other people's opinions become my reality. I let the world tell me who I was and what I could do. Appearance. And every time I tried to rise, something would whisper, "Sit back down. That dream isn't for you." But that voice wasn't truth. That voice wasn't power. Fierce. That voice was fear, dressed up as logic, wearing the mask of reason. And I listened to it, I obeyed it, I lived under it, until one day I got tired. Tired of shrinking, tired of doubting, tired of existing when I was born to live. And I don't know what your moment will be. Maybe it'll come after a loss. Appearance. Maybe it'll come in the middle of a storm. Maybe it'll hit you when you're alone and crying in the dark. But one day, if you don't quit, appearance, if you keep reaching, your moment will come. That moment when something inside of you stands up and says, "No more." Appearance. I will no longer let fear write my story. Because when you finally believe in yourself, you stop waiting for permission. You stop asking the world to validate you. You stop looking for signs and start becoming the sign. You begin to speak differently, walk differently. Appearance, dream differently. People look at you and say, "What changed?" And you tell them, "I did." Appearance. I started believing in the power that was already in me. Let me tell you something. The dream is already yours. The vision is already yours. The life, appearance, the impact, the legacy, all of it is yours. But only if you believe it's possible for you. Too many people go to the grave with their greatness still inside them, buried under what ifs and "I wasn't ready." But you are here right now. Appearance. You're breathing, you're alive, and that means there's still time. Time to rebuild, time to rise, time to become who you were created to be. Appearance. Don't you dare waste your pain. Don't you dare waste your struggle. You've been through too much to not use it. You've cried too many nights, lost too many battles, fought through too much silence to stay small now. You owe it to yourself to turn that pain into purpose, to turn your wounds into wisdom. Appearance. To rise not despite your scars, but because of them. See, when you finally believe in yourself, you stop competing with other people. Appearance. You realize this race was never against them. It was always between the version of you that settles and the version of you that soars. Appearance. That version is waiting for you on the other side of fear. But you can't meet them playing it safe. You can't meet them hiding behind excuses. Appearance. You've got to walk through the fire. You've got to believe in yourself when no one else does. You've got to clap for yourself when no one shows up. Appearance. You've got to keep going when you don't see the results, because belief isn't about what you see. It's about what you know. And what I know is this. Appearance. Every single person who ever did anything great had to first fight the battle within. That voice inside that says, "Who do you think you are? You're not ready. You've failed before." And you have to answer back, "I am more than my past. I am more than my fears. I am more than enough." Because if you don't speak life into yourself, the world will speak death over your dreams. Appearance. If you don't learn how to encourage yourself, you'll stay discouraged waiting for applause that may never come. Let me ask you something. What would your life look like if you stopped holding back? If you started showing up fully, unapologetically, fearlessly? Appearance. If you looked in the mirror and finally saw not your flaws, but your potential? What would happen if you made the decision right now, appearance, to stop playing small and start playing bold? I'll tell you what happens. The world changes, not because it suddenly gets easier, appearance, not because everything goes your way, but because you change. You start knocking on doors that you used to walk past. Appearance, you start applying for opportunities you once thought were too big. You start saying yes to things that scare you, and no to the things that shrink you. Appearance, that's the power of belief. Belief will put you in rooms your fear tried to keep you out of. Belief will have you dreaming bigger, speaking louder, loving deeper. Appearance, belief will break generational curses. Belief will rewrite your story. And no, belief alone isn't everything. You still have to do the work. Appearance, you still have to sacrifice. You still have to fail forward, get up again and again and again. But belief is the engine. Appearance, belief is what fuels you through the storm. Belief is what allows you to see the mountain and say, I don't know how, but I will climb. And let me tell you something about belief. It's contagious. When you start believing in yourself, appearance, it gives other people permission to do the same. Your courage becomes someone else's inspiration. Your faith becomes someone else's evidence. Your journey becomes someone else's roadmap. That's why you can't quit. That's why you can't hide. Someone out there is waiting for you to rise. Because when you rise, they rise too. Listen, the world is full of people who have the talent, the skill, the education, but not the belief. And it keeps them locked in lives they hate, in jobs that drain them, in relationships that break them. But belief. Appearance. Belief is the key. Belief unlocks the doors you were too afraid to knock on. It opens up possibilities where there used to be only problems. You are not too old. Appearance. You are not too late. You are not too broken. You are not too far gone. Everything you need is already in you. It's not out there in some course, some person, appearance, some magical opportunity. It's in your heart, your mind, your spirit. But you've got to access it. You've got to trust it. Appearance, you've got to protect it. Because once you believe in yourself, the enemy will try even harder to shake you. Life will test your belief. It will ask, appearance, do you really mean it? And you've got to answer with action. You've got to move like it's already yours. You've got to show up like you're already enough. You've got to speak like the future is listening. Appearance, you've got to walk like your destiny depends on it, because it does. And no, you won't always feel confident. Confidence is a feeling. Belief is a decision. Appearance, you won't always feel ready. That's okay. You don't have to feel ready. You have to be willing. Willing to grow. Willing to fall. Willing to rise. Appearance, willing to bet on yourself again and again, no matter how many times life says no. The truth is you don't need everyone to believe in you. Appearance, you just need you. Because once you believe, the world has no choice but to follow. Doors open, energy shifts. Appearance, people start seeing in you what you finally saw in yourself. And it all begins the moment you stop asking, can I? And start declaring, appearance, I will. So if you're tired, keep going. If you're scared, do it anyway. If you're doubting, speak truth louder than fear. Appearance, and if you're ready, truly ready, then say it with me now, I believe in me. I believe in my future. Appearance, I believe in the power inside of me that's been waiting for this moment. I believe that my past does not define me, and my fear will not control me. Appearance, I believe and everything is about to change. Because when you finally believe in yourself, everything changes. There is a giant living inside every one of us. Appearance, a force of nature, a bold, unstoppable version of who we truly are before the world told us to shrink, before doubt crept in. Appearance, before fear built its walls around our greatness. You were born with something special in you, not given to everyone, appearance, not handed out to the crowd, but placed inside you specifically. And the problem is, most people never meet that version of themselves, appearance. They live their entire lives answering to fear, to expectations, to comfort. They hear the whispers of the giant, but they ignore them. They feel the pull, appearance, but they stay planted, and deep down they know something powerful is trapped inside, screaming to be released. This giant is not loud, appearance. It doesn't beg for attention, it waits. It waits for the day you stop negotiating with fear. It waits for the day you get tired of being tired, appearance. It waits for the moment when the pain of staying the same becomes greater than the fear of change. That's when the shift begins, not outside of you, but within. Appearance. That's when the giant starts to rise. And when it does, everything around you begins to move. Not because the world changes, but because you changed. See, appearance. Unlocking your inner giant isn't about becoming someone else. It's about shedding everything you're not. The limitations. The labels. Appearance. Every voice that said you're not enough. Every experience that told you to play small. It all has to go. You weren't born to fit in, appearance. You were born to stand up. You weren't born to stay quiet. You were born to speak truth. You weren't born to survive. You were born to thrive. But the key to unlocking that truth is belief, not a soft belief, not a temporary belief, a fierce, unwavering belief in the possibility that lives within you. Your giant is not afraid of failure. Your giant doesn't care what people think. Your giant doesn't wait for the perfect moment. Your giant acts. It moves. Appearance. It claims territory. It's the part of you that walks into a room and doesn't apologize for taking up space. Appearance. It's the version of you that doesn't ask for permission to dream. But most people never hear that voice because they're too busy listening to fear. And fear. Fear is loud. Fear is urgent. Fear will dress itself up as logic. It'll pretend to protect you. It'll convince you that now isn't the time. Appearance. That you're not ready. That success is for other people. And if you're not careful, fear will keep you in a prison so comfortable, you'll call it home. But your giant lives outside that prison. Your giant is the real you, the courageous you, the bold, fully alive, fully expressed version of you. Appearance. It doesn't want average. It doesn't want survival. It doesn't want just enough. It wants legacy. It wants purpose. It wants freedom. Appearance. But to access that version of yourself, you've got to be willing to go deep. You've got to look at every excuse you've ever used. Appearance. Every story you've ever told yourself about why you can't, why you're not ready, why it won't work, and destroy them. Appearance. Because none of those stories belong to the giant inside you. The giant inside you knows you're powerful. The giant knows you're capable. Appearance. It knows that no matter where you come from, what you've been through, or how many times you've failed, there is more ahead of you than there is behind you. Appearance. But your giant can't walk for you. It can't speak for you. It can't fight for you. Appearance. It can only rise when you decide to stop playing small and start living full. Most people are one decision away from a completely different life. Appearance. But they never make that decision because they think small is safe. But small is not safe. Small is deadly. Small dreams lead to a small life. Appearance. Small thinking leads to small results. And the more you shrink yourself, the harder it becomes to remember that you were meant for more. But the truth is, the giant in you will never die. It will just get buried under years of settling. And if you let it stay buried, regret will become your closest companion. Appearance. You've got something inside of you that the world needs, something no one else can duplicate. Your voice, your story, your vision. Appearance. That giant inside of you was put there for a reason. And when you stop hiding, when you stop doubting, when you finally say, appearance, I will not let fear have the final word, that's when the lock breaks. That's when the chains fall off. That's when the fire starts to burn again. Appearance. And once that fire is lit, once you start seeing glimpses of your true potential, you'll never be satisfied with less again. Appearance. You don't need to wait for the perfect moment. You don't need someone to give you permission. You don't need more followers, more money, or more credentials. Appearance. You need to trust that the giant inside of you has been ready. You've just been hesitating. You've been asking the world for signs when the only sign you need is the discomfort you feel every time you settle. That discomfort is your calling. That fire in your gut is your compass. That restlessness you feel at night, that's your giant saying, wake up. Appearance. We've got work to do, but don't expect it to be easy. Giants don't live in comfort zones. Giants live in the stretch, in the risk. Appearance. In the decision to keep going when everything in you wants to quit. Your inner giant is forged in adversity, in discipline. Appearance. In the quiet moments when no one is clapping and you keep showing up anyway. It doesn't grow in applause. It grows in the dark, in the repetition, in the grind. Appearance. And when the world finally sees the fruit of your labor, they'll call it overnight success, but you'll know better. Appearance. You'll know the years you spent fighting yourself. You'll know the tears, the setbacks, the doubts. But through it all, you kept going. You kept building. You kept unlocking. You won't find your giant by reading another quote, scrolling through another feed, or attending another seminar. You find it by doing the hard, unglamorous work of facing yourself, looking in the mirror and saying, there is more in me. Appearance. And I refuse to leave this life with my giant still locked inside. Because you can fake a lot of things, but you can't fake belief. You either believe in your power or you bow to your fear. And today is not a day to bow. Today is the day you step toward the mirror, toward the fire. Appearance. Toward the life you were born for. Because once the giant is awake, nothing can stop you. Not the past, not your critics, not your fear. Appearance. The moment the giant wakes up is the moment the world starts making room for your greatness. Because the world doesn't respond to hesitation, it responds to conviction. Appearance. And conviction lives in the voice of the giant. There is a kind of belief that doesn't waver. A belief that doesn't ask for permission, doesn't beg for proof. Appearance. And doesn't slow down when things get hard. It's not soft, it's not part-time, it's relentless. Appearance. This kind of self-belief doesn't show up only when things are going well. It shows up when everything around you is falling apart. Appearance. When the results don't match the effort. When no one is clapping. When doubt is screaming and the finish line is still miles away. Appearance. This is the kind of belief that turns ordinary people into legends. Most people only believe in themselves when life is going their way. When the paycheck clears. Appearance. When the opportunity is confirmed. When someone validates their efforts. But that kind of belief is fragile. It breaks under pressure. Appearance. It crumbles at the first sign of rejection. Relentless self-belief, though, doesn't need outside validation. It's born from within. It's forged in silence. Appearance. It's built in moments of isolation, in hours of repetition, in seasons where the only voice you hear is your own telling you to keep going. To have relentless self-belief is to stare failure in the face and say, you don't define me. It's to hear the no, to take the hit. Appearance. To get knocked down and still get back up. Not because it's easy, not because you feel strong, but because there's something in you that refuses to quit. Something that says, I will not be denied. That's not arrogance, that's ownership. Appearance. That's knowing who you are even when the world hasn't caught on yet. Relentless self-belief doesn't ask if it's the right time. It creates the time. Appearance. It doesn't wait for the door to open. It builds the door. It doesn't sit around hoping someone sees its value. It walks in the room and brings its own worth. Appearance. This kind of belief changes everything, not because it avoids struggle, but because it transforms struggle, it turns pain into power. It takes setbacks and turns them into strategy. It takes not yet and turns it into watch me. Every person who has ever done something that mattered, every game changer, every history maker, appearance, every underdog who rose, they all had one thing in common: they believed in themselves when no one else did, when it didn't make sense. Appearance, when the odds were against them, when the voices said, be realistic. And they didn't argue. They didn't try to convince the world. They just kept moving, kept building, kept showing up. Because relentless self-belief isn't loud, it's consistent. Consistency is the evidence of belief. Appearance. If you truly believe in yourself, you don't need motivation. You move because it's who you are. You don't chase comfort. You chase calling. You understand that results don't come from hoping, wishing, or waiting. They come from trusting your process, honoring your grind, appearance, and betting on yourself even when the scoreboard says you're losing. And the truth is, belief doesn't start with a breakthrough. It starts in the trenches. Appearance. It starts in that early morning when your body says sleep, but your future says rise. It starts when you hit the wall for the 50th time and still say, appearance, I'll try again. It starts when you stop outsourcing your confidence and start building it from within. That's when things start to change. Not instantly, appearance, but permanently. Relentless self-belief isn't just about what you say. It's how you show up. It's the way you walk into a room with vision in your eyes. Appearance. It's how you respond to criticism without shrinking. It's how you stay grounded in your mission, even when your emotions try to hijack the day. Appearance. People can feel that. They can feel when you believe in yourself. They may not say it, but they'll treat you differently. The world responds to certainty. Appearance. And certainty comes from belief, but belief has to be fed. It has to be protected. Appearance. You can't expect to believe in yourself while surrounding yourself with people who constantly plant seeds of doubt. Appearance. You can't speak power over your life in the morning and speak fear over it by night. Appearance. You've got to choose every day to water the belief or water the fear. One will grow. One will shrink. And you've got to live with the harvest. Appearance. You've got to protect your mind like it's sacred ground. You've got to guard your vision like it's treasure. Appearance. You've got to treat your belief like a muscle, because it is. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. The more you challenge it, the more it expands. Appearance. The more you trust it, the more it begins to transform you. Not just how you think, but how you live. And here's what most people don't realize. Appearance. Belief comes before the evidence. You don't wait to believe after the result. You believe first, and the result follows. That's what makes it hard. Appearance. That's what makes it rare. That's what makes it powerful. Anyone can believe when the path is clear, but it takes courage to believe when all you see is fog. Appearance. When the steps are invisible. When the only voice you hear is your own whisper saying, appearance, just one more step. Relentless self-belief means you show up even when the fear is loud. It means you take action even when the doubt is heavy. Appearance. It means you build even when the resources are few. It means you keep moving, not because you're certain of the outcome. Appearance. But because you're certain of your capacity. You don't just believe in a result. You believe in your ability to figure it out, no matter what comes. Appearance. That's the kind of belief that moves mountains. That's the kind of belief that turns the impossible into inevitable. That's the kind of belief that creates momentum, that opens doors, that shifts atmospheres. Because when you walk through life with relentless self-belief, appearance, people can feel it before you say a word. They can feel it in your energy, your posture, your focus. They know you're not here to play. You're here to win. And let's be honest, not everyone will support your belief. Some will question it. Some will criticize it. Some will try to talk you down, appearance, not because they see your weakness, but because they see your strength. Your belief will remind them of the belief they gave up on, appearance. Your fire will threaten their comfort, and that's okay. You weren't built for their approval. You were built for your calling, appearance. You can't afford to dim your light just because others are still afraid of their own, appearance. You can't afford to put your dreams on hold while waiting for someone else to catch up. You've got to move like you already know it's yours, appearance. You've got to act like you've already seen the finish line. You've got to commit like there is no plan B, appearance. Because relentless self-belief doesn't leave room for backup plans. There is a version of you that you've caught glimpses of in quiet moments, appearance. The version that moves with purpose, that speaks with power, that doesn't hold back. The version of you that doesn't play small, doesn't chase approval, appearance, doesn't make decisions from fear. You've seen this person. You've felt them trying to break through. But every time they try to rise, something pulls them back. That something is fear. Fear of being seen. Fear of being misunderstood. Fear of being too much, not enough, or simply different. Appearance, so you shrink. You dim your light. You tell yourself, maybe someday. But someday isn't promised, appearance. And the person you're afraid to be is the only one who can build the life you've been dreaming about, appearance. Most people never become that version of themselves because they're too attached to comfort, too loyal to the story they've been telling themselves for years. I'm not ready. It's not the right time. What if I fail? They let these thoughts run their lives, and in doing so, appearance, they betray the potential that's buried deep inside them. But the truth is, growth doesn't happen by staying in the shallow end, appearance. Growth happens when you walk straight into the fear, into the resistance, into the unknown, and refuse to back down, appearance. Becoming the person you're afraid to be requires a level of honesty most people aren't ready for. You have to get real about the habits, the excuses, appearance, the beliefs that are keeping you locked in a life that no longer fits. You have to be willing to disappoint people. You have to risk being misunderstood, appearance. You have to let go of needing to be liked in order to be free, appearance. Because the person you were afraid to be isn't worried about approval. They're focused on alignment, appearance. That version of you doesn't wait for confidence to show up before taking action. They move first. They speak first, appearance. They choose themselves over and over again, not because they never feel fear, but because they've learned to move with it, appearance. They've learned that fear is not the enemy. Fear is the indicator that you're on the edge of becoming, appearance. Fear shows up when you're getting closer to the truth of who you are. And you either let it drive you back into the familiar, or you let it fuel your transformation, appearance. You will never become the person you were meant to be if you're still trying to protect the version of you that was created for survival, appearance. That version was necessary. That version got you here. But it can't take you where you're going. There comes a moment when you have to decide evolve or repeat, appearance. You can't become who you were afraid to be and keep holding on to who you used to be. Something has to break. Something has to shift. And most of the time, that shift starts with a decision. A decision to stop playing by the rules you didn't write. A decision to stop apologizing for your power, appearance. A decision to stop shrinking to fit into spaces you were born to stand out in, appearance. Becoming the person you're afraid to be means stepping into leadership, not of others, but of yourself. It means showing up even when it's messy, appearance. It means taking responsibility for your life, your choices, your voice. It means no longer waiting to be chosen, appearance, because you finally understand that you are the one who does the choosing. You don't need someone else to validate your worth. You don't need a perfect plan, appearance. You need courage. You need commitment. You need the willingness to take one bold step, and then another, appearance. and then another, until one day you wake up and realize you've become the version of yourself you used to only imagine. This journey won't be smooth. Appearance, it won't be easy. There will be resistance. There will be moments when the old version of you tries to pull you back into comfort. Appearance, it will tell you to play it safe, to stay where it's predictable. And in those moments, appearance, you'll have to decide whether the discomfort of growth is worth more than the comfort of regret. Appearance, you'll have to look in the mirror and ask yourself if you're willing to trade a life of safety for a life of significance. People will question your change. Appearance, they'll wonder why you're suddenly speaking louder, showing up differently, saying no when you used to say yes. They might call it arrogance. Appearance, they might say you've changed, and they'll be right, because becoming the person you were afraid to be will absolutely change you. It will stretch you. Appearance, it will expose every area of your life where you've been settling. It will force you to rise into the version of you that doesn't flinch when challenged. Appearance, doesn't freeze when criticized, and doesn't quit when it gets hard. But here's the truth. Deep down, you already are that person. Appearance, it's not about becoming something you're not. It's about unlearning everything that made you believe you couldn't be. It's about shedding layers of shame, appearance, of doubt, of expectations that were never yours to carry. It's about remembering the version of you that existed before the world told you to tone it down. Appearance, sit still and stay quiet. That version is still alive, still waiting, still powerful. And the moment you stop running from that version, your life starts to shift. Appearance, you start to attract opportunities that match your energy. You start to surround yourself with people who see your fire instead of fearing it. Appearance, you start to make decisions from alignment, not anxiety. And little by little, you start to live from truth, not from fear, not